McCaffrey, your name was mentioned earlier. General Hertling said that you were a mentor of his, and your name came up because I was explaining that what I had the honor to learn when I served on the Armed Services Committee, being around generals and admirals. You always think the generals and the admirals are in charge. No, it's actually the retired generals and the retired admirals who are their mentors that they always look up to. So when you saw those 800 military leaders in that room, it reminds me of Douglas MacArthur's speech, duty, honor, courage, and a ghost, 1,000 ghosts rising from white crosses. There's just the spirit of duty, honor, country in that room. And they're not going to betray the oath they gave to the Constitution for a politician, are they? I mean, there's hundreds of years of tradition that they are bound by.
Well, look, I've been doing this a long time. That presentation at Quantico from the President and the Secretary of Defense is one of the most bizarre, unsettling events I've ever encountered. The President sounded incoherent, exhausted, rabidly partisan, at times stupid, meandering, couldn't hold a thought together. That audience is an apolitical institution. They will be respectful and follow all legal orders willingly. And by the way, it was not just the generals, it was the senior enlisted advisors for all those commands. They hold the culture of the armed forces in their hands. And then the Secretary of Defense gave a Rambo presentation, at times pretty good, whiskers, shaving, physical fitness, a first sergeant's talk at Reveille, not bad. But at other times, he's basically calling into question whether minorities and women were DEI or were they promotions based on merit. Nothing could be farther from the truth. And by the way, the group he was talking to have been in combat for 20 years. Their sons and daughters served. A bunch of them got killed and maimed. It was a highly inappropriate use of the armed forces, never mind the unsettling things about using military force in American cities. A very strange day in American life.
So Claire McCaskill, General McCaffrey really bit his tongue there in his thoughts about the president's speech. But let's get you in particular to zero in on where he ended, which is this idea of using American cities as, quote, training grounds for the U.S. military, potentially previewing further and further deployments of American soldiers on American streets.
Yeah, I think that the White House is misjudging this. Stephen Miller is at play here. The visuals of law enforcement officers from the federal government marching around in soldiers' get-ups with full kits and helmets and long rifles and combat weapons around a peaceful American city, that visual is jarring to most Americans, and they don't like it, and they will not like it. And it is wrong to use Americans' military. And I think the overriding theme here, if I can just tee off what General McCaffrey mentioned, the overall theme here is disrespect for the military. Because when Donald Trump said some of those things, and then when Hegseth said some of those things, to the best we have in this country, the very best, men and very few women, thanks to Pete Hegseth, that we're sitting there represent courage and integrity and honor and the leadership that they provide to Americans' military. It was disrespectful to talk to them that way. It was disrespectful to the military tradition, the proud military tradition in this country. It is disrespectful to send law enforcement into American cities that aren't trained to do law enforcement, and frankly, it's illegal to do law enforcement. So it's just, and by the way, the men and few women in that room know all that I just said. It's not like they walked out of there going, gosh, we've got great leadership now in the civilian part of the military, or gosh, we've got a commander-in-chief that really has his act together. And it signals to the rest of the world instability, and that probably is the most damaging part of this.
It is so against culture. I've been been speeches in front of military men and women in my own district when I served, and I will tell you, if somebody got up and said something that even remotely bordered on political, you could just see everybody stiffening up and bristling. And here we, of course, have it at the highest level. Jonathan Martin, you and I have both been around, Washington and politics long enough to understand there's always an ebb and flow. Every 2 years or so, there's an ebb and Republicans to Democrats to Republicans. I just can't help but watch all of the things happening, and watching, Elon Musk and his chainsaw, and a president of the United States ordering his attorney general publicly to arrest his political enemies and to hurry up. President of the United States telling his generals that he wanted to use the military against Americans and use American cities as training grounds. Yeah. $1 trillion in cuts to health care, $1 trillion in tax cuts for the richest Americans. I look at these, all of them, and I just think, where are the Republicans saying, hey, guys, women, we need to bring this back in between the guardrails here, because there is going to be a wicked political backlash at the polls.
Well, I think that until and unless they feel that heat, they touch the flame, I don't think it's going to happen, Joe. I mean, I was so struck listening to your questioning of Congresswoman McClain, because of course she doesn't want the specter of uniformed American troops, suppressing American citizens in American cities. But like so many of her colleagues, she's handcuffed to whatever the Trump line is on a given day. And every day, the job is rationalizing, averting your gaze from downplaying or just changing the subject from something that's totally aberrant and out of step with the American tradition that your president just said. Lisa McClain wasn't calling for the National Guard in American cities 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. She's doing it because that's what Trump wants in this moment. And that's the entire project now. Joe, you asked, when does it stop? I just don't think it's going to change until and unless Trump's numbers come down considerably. He falls into the 30s, perhaps, and they face real political backlash at the polls. But if that doesn't happen, I don't see them saying when.
General McCaffrey, we'll close on you. I'm just wondering what you're hearing from your colleagues in the military, and moving forward, what you're most concerned about and what citizens can do.
Well, look, one thing must be said. The National Guard, 430,000 troops, is a national treasure. When there's a disaster, they'll be there. They're our friends and neighbors. They're well equipped, they're disciplined, they're responsive. But we do not want American military personnel on the streets of our cities arresting civilians, collecting evidence, or trying to do community policing. It's ineffective. It's against American values. It's an outrage, and we need to stand up and say that categorically.
Retired 4-star Army General Barry McCaffrey, thank you very much.